But it was a cool trip. I got to, friend of the show, Eric Ross, got to hang out with him for an afternoon. And we didn't have any plans. We were going to go get lunch. And then he was just like, do you want to do anything? And I was just like, honestly, whatever you want, I'm down for. And he was like, well, there's a Kusama exhibit at the Hirshhorn, which is the National Museum of Modern Art. That's like right on the mall. It's one of the Smithsonian's. And so I was like, oh, fuck yeah, I want to go see this. So I can never remember how to pronounce her first name, but she does these super cool, like, have you ever seen Meow Wolf or heard of Meow Wolf? Okay. Well, so she started this whole, it's like abstract modern art installations that are completely, not necessarily interactive, but definitely like immersive, where she does these things called infinity rooms. I can find a picture of it for you and show you. She does these infinity rooms that are just like absolutely super cool. But they ended up they weren't doing like, so the Smithsonian Museum, all the Smithsonian museums are free. You don't have to pay to go in. You can go in, see one thing and walk out. Yeah. And so the way they were doing this, because I don't don't think it was part of their permanent collection. I think it was a touring exhibit. And so they don't sell tickets to them. They were giving timed passes. So just like every day when they open, you get in line, you get a pass. And after they're gone, they just stop giving them. And so we got there at we went to lunch and got there at 12:30 and they were already gone. So I didn't get to see them. I saw a few others. There was, I can't remember his name. He's a French surrealist artist and sculptor. Starts with a D. It's listed on the Hirshhorn. My God, on the let's see. Well, I'll find it. I'll put it in the show notes. But got to see that. That was pretty cool. And then there were a few other exhibits with some very I would call it extremely academic art, where it was hit and miss, kind of cool, but also kind of looked like there was one exhibit that it was a lady who was a multimedia artist. And Eric and I were standing there, and it reminded me of, have you ever seen Rent?
I've seen that.
The musical. Yeah. Yeah. I can't remember the name of the character, but the one lady who does the one-man show that's just like interpretive kind of modern art stuff. I swear I was watching that. So it was okay. But then we just, walked around the Capitol, and I took some pictures and stuff, and got to go to the National Botanical Gardens, which were that was fucking cool. It was just like a series of I think 5 huge greenhouses full of every kind of plant you could imagine. It was hot as fuck though.
Oh, yeah.
But they had every kind of fern. They had a whole room full of orchids. It was super cool.
Seems awesome.
Definitely worth going to if you ever go there.
I definitely want to see the Smithsonian. I want to. I want to see the White House, Pentagon,
do the monument loop.
You got to. I haven't seen any of that shit. Everyone had that chance to do it.
It's worth going.
In high school for the civics trip, but there was a lot of fundraising and strings attached, and I just really didn't. I was like, I'm just not about that life.
In my school, we had that opportunity. I think it was in 7th or 8th grade, and I had 1 year before gone for my grandfather's funeral, and so I was just like, I've been there. I don't want to go on a class field trip to DC. That sounds miserable. But the first time I was there, we went and saw the Lincoln Memorial and the Jefferson and stuff. But this time we went to the Lincoln. It was way different because this wasn't the first time I went there was 2004, I think. And so the Park Service still had money. And I remember there were park rangers all over the place, and especially in the Lincoln Memorial, it's huge. It's basically just a huge mausoleum of sorts. And there's signs everywhere that say, quiet, please, respect. This is a memorial. And they would, and I remember them just like a park ranger would come out every couple minutes and just fucking yell full force at somebody to shut the fuck up because they were disrespecting a war memorial, which was pretty great. Went back this time on, so my my aunts lived in DC for like 40 some odd years now, or around DC, and we went back, and there are no, I think I saw one park ranger in the whole several hours I was there walking around, because the Lincoln, Vietnam, Korean, and World War II memorials are all like right there along the reflecting pool that's right in front of the Lincoln. There was no park rangers, and like you go in there and there's just people like screaming and running around. When we were walking out after we finished in there, we were walking down the marble steps, and we were on the side, and along them is just like smooth marble down the side of the stairs. And some dumbass lady gets on the thing and slides down and just goes like from like 0 to 100 and just slams on her ass at the bottom of the stairs. And my aunt was so over, because they have like those Lime scooters and rentable bikes everywhere, and no one knows how to ride a bike in a city, so no one's like telling you they're coming by. I almost got hit like 4 times, and my aunt had been like, every time somebody just went by, she'd just be like, you normally say on your left, and we got there, and this lady goes down the stairs, and she just walks up to him, and she's like, this is a war memorial, we don't really do that here. And and it was really cool to see all this stuff, but also it, like, we were talking about it, and like, my family is like a family that has, my aunt worked for some 3-letter agencies, and my grandfather was an FBI agent and fought in the World War II. My uncle worked in the Pentagon. Like, government, we've been involved in this stuff for a long time, and it's weird to go and see it now, because, and knowing like the background of what all this stuff is, and the kind of like consequences of all these big things that have happened to the country, and to see just people treating it like that. And like, I get it's the Lincoln Memorial. He's been dead for 200 years. The Civil War was that far back. People forget, but I mean, it's like, it's not like it wasn't an important moment in the country where nearly a third of the country died trying to fight to figure out what direction the country was going to go.
People, I mean, that's a big problem with our country, is inheritance. We inherited a fucking empire, one off the backs of previous generations. And this inheritance and entitlement is really a big reason, and lack of participation as well, are a big reason why we are kind of in the state that we are in now. Why it's not good. It's definitely not good. No. And it's unfortunate, because I would be, if I went to something place, and I visited memorials in Europe and whatnot, where there's just thousands of those white crosses. Of just look, it's wild. It's wild, the amount of dead.
Yeah, it's a very, like, being in. So, like I said, my grandfather, we buried him in Arlington in 2004, I think. And it was weird going there again, because I was 13, 14 when we went, I think, for my grandfather's funeral. And I remember it, and being in Arlington, I didn't have the appreciation for it that I do now, being, 20 some odd years older. And it was difficult, not only for my, different age and different experiences. So it was a very obviously emotionally exhausting and emotional time. But we went back on Wednesday, when we were just going around looking at all the different monuments and stuff before we flew out later that day. And it's hard. Like, I tried to take a few pictures of just like, my grandfather and grandma were buried on this beautiful hill overlooking the Pentagon. It's like a really cool spot. But like, I remember when we were there, Grandpa, his gravestone was only like, maybe he's like, I think they're like 3 rows in from the road. But when we went there the first time, there was nothing past them. There was a whole third of the cemetery that is now new, from 20 years of war. And like just trying to take a very like respectful photo of just like you said, that like seeing memorials with all those crosses. Imagine that, but with just uniform white granite in white marble in every direction in perfect rows. It's a very sobering and very like heavy place. Very beautiful, but like trying to take a picture just of something, it was so hard because I'm not joking. There was a funeral going on in every single direction. Standing there, like when we were driving out, there was a funeral for an Air Force general that they had a riderless horse and a case on. The day of my nanny's funeral, there was another high-ranking officer funeral that had like the full honors and everything. I think we stood there for maybe like 45 minutes and you could hear like salutes going on all over the place.
Gun salute or whatever it is.
Yeah.
Damn,
yeah. 21 guns.
dude.
Yeah. And so like, it's, when you come in, so like if you go to if you're at a funeral, you start, so Arlington is inside. Arlington National Cemetery is one side of it. You go across a bridge over the Potomac from DC to the main gates where there's like, there's a mausoleum where it's something like if you didn't have certain accommodations or you weren't a commissioned officer, you're not eligible to be buried in the cemetery, but there's a mausoleum where you can be interred. Like your ashes can be interred, but it's like kind of one of those like celebrity kind of mausoleums they have in like big cities where it's just like a safety deposit box basically. And so like tourists can go in there and they can see that. And then there's tours that go all over the place because that's where JFK's grave and it's like the never ending flame or something.
The unnamed soldier or whatever.
In the Tomb of the Unknown Soldier is there as well. And it's both of those are right up the hill from the entrance. But then there is a gate, like, so you can't just go into the cemetery. You have to have passes because Arlington National Cemetery is technically contained within a joint base with all the different branches serving it. And so like you start there's a chapel where they have, the mass or the service for whatever. And then you go in a motorcade to the grave site. And it was just really weird. And I didn't have the sense when I was there before, but it was so surreal, riding in the car through the cemetery behind, the lead car to my grandpa and grandma's gravesite. And there's like a tour bus had to pull over and let us by, and people were like, we drove by a stop where people wait for the tour bus and a bunch of people were standing there and they all took their hats off and, and that was nice, but it's just so strange to like, yeah, I mean, I'm sure it's difficult for everyone to lose a loved one and to lose a grandparent and something, but it's so strange to have my grandparents essentially buried at a tourist attraction,
fuck, dude.
Like my grandfather earned it. Like the man, he fought in Okinawa. He fought the Battle of Sugarloaf Hill. He stormed the beaches of Iwo Jima. He was in the Solomon Islands. He was in the occupation of Tsingtao in China after the war. And then was an FBI agent for 35 years. Yeah, I mean, and he earned it. Like he was amazing. And it's so strange. And the thing I couldn't stop thinking, just seeing all of those graves and, there's parts of the cemetery where they're older gravestones that they had before they adopted the uniform ones. So they look kind of like your typical gravestone at a cemetery. There's just all different sizes, but seeing all the uniform gravestones and seeing so many of them, there were a lot of them that were, people who had fought in Korea or Vietnam, but there were so many that fought in Afghanistan and Iraq in recent wars that just sitting there and it was just like, what did we get out of this? Like it's getting to the point now my aunt was telling us that they're actually running out of room of the land available to bury people in Arlington. Yeah. That it was very surreal, but very cool. Like it's definitely an honor to be, to be able to have experienced that twice, but still just really strange to know that my grandparents are there,
So do you have to get a visitor's pass to go back and visit them? Like if you wanted to go leave flowers on there?
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, we had to even just to go to the funeral, we had to do a background check to get into the base. Yeah. I funny enough, my cousins flunked her background check. She got in and was able to be at the funeral, but it was funny because we had to go early so that she could go to the security office. Dude. But yeah, grandkids don't get passes, but all of the children, the direct children of whoever's buried there, all get a permanent pass. And then for mine, I'd either have to go with my aunt, or she could give me her pass, or I could call and just basically do the exact same thing I did to get in for the funeral. But then once you get in, you can drive up to the gravesite, park, and you're welcome to stay there as long as you want, which is nice.